Over the past few years, independent-released platform games have really taken over. Started off with the likes of Super Meat Boy and Braid, and we've had more recent ones, some embracing the retro style like Shovel Knight, and other ones going with a slightly different approach in storytelling like Thomas Was Alone. Now, I just got done playing a new platform game that can go right alongside all the rest of those great games. It's called Klaus. It's available on the PlayStation 4, and I think it's definitely worth checking out. In Klaus, you're playing as the nameless character who just goes by Klaus due to the tattoo that he found on his arm after awakening. He awakens with no memory in the basement of a building, and you have to explore that building, going from the basement and working your way up several different levels, exploring, and slowly but surely more memories come back and the story starts to unfold. Klaus at its core is a platform game, but it's never a boring platform game by any means. It's always changing up the formula and adding new things level after level to make each level feel different from the one you just previously finished. As soon as you've mastered a particular style of platforming, whether it be just running and jumping or double jumping, or maybe an anti-gravity style of level where you're flipping gravity overall, or hanging onto walls and jumping back and forth between the walls. Or, what the game does really well is having you, the player, control platforms for the character in the game. And you do this via the touchpad. And I have to admit, I was very nervous when I picked up the game because I was afraid that the touchpad controls would end up ruining an overall good experience, but it doesn't do so. The touchpad is used quite a lot, but you're used to lock on to platforms, and then you can control that platform. You can also open up gates via this, and you'll have to sometimes open gates not only to go through, but maybe to close them really quickly to stop a various obstacle from hitting Klaus or enemies in order to actually stop them from getting to him as well. Very early on in the game, you're introduced to K1, who's basically like a big muscled version of Klaus. Now, K1 controls differently. He's slower, he can't jump as well as Klaus, but he can throw Klaus, which adds a whole new dynamic to the levels as you're trying to figure out where you can throw him. And you're throwing him everywhere, just maybe find a secret or two located throughout the various different levels. Also, K1 can float using the cape on his back, and this leads to a whole variety of different floating style of puzzles where you'll have to slowly glide and then drop quickly, maybe do an uppercut to get some more air, and then glide the rest of the way. It's very satisfying and very fun to do almost all the different styles of puzzles throughout the game of Klaus. There is a lot of story in Klaus, but it never bogs you down. The game never slows down, with very few cutscenes to break up the main total gameplay. All the storyline is pretty much done with text on the screen. As you're controlling your characters, as they're running through, all of a sudden some text will appear that goes along with whatever you're particularly doing, or it's the characters pondering on what they had just done, or maybe what's about to come. Maybe they saw something and now you're chasing it for the next couple of levels, hoping to finally get to it and hoping that that will add another piece to the puzzle that is trying to figure out exactly what's going on. Besides the main level goals, of course, of trying to figure out exactly how to get to the exit and figuring out the memories, one thing that will help along with that is the secrets. They're basically in hidden areas that you'll go through, and there'll be a multicolored flashing ball, and when you go into it, it takes you to a bonus style of level, and they have all kinds of various different themes for the bonus levels. And once you complete it, you get a piece of a picture. If you're able to find all the pieces of a picture in a particular world, you unlock a memory, and you're going to need to unlock all the memories in the game in order to get the true final boss and true ending. And while I'm usually not a big fan of that, this game overall, it doesn't overly hide a lot of the secrets, and it was fun to actually explore the levels. A lot of times I was finding the secrets just by kind of noticing, oh, right up there's just that little opening, maybe there's somehow I can get up there, and I was able to just barely reach it and find that next secret to unlock another memory for Klaus. The game is broken up into 6 different levels or areas to explore, and each of those areas is broken up into several different chapters. They're basically changing up the background, and yes, there are some aesthetics that go along with it, whether it be toxic waste or certain types of enemies that appear in certain levels. But overall, from chapter to chapter, the levels are changing up a good deal from one another. Yeah, you're gonna see similar styles of platforming throughout, of course, but overall, the game keeps changing up, and it makes it fun. I was playing for hours, and it honestly felt like minutes. As a longtime fan of platforms, I like the ones that walk the line of balance, never getting too ridiculously tough, but never too easy either. This game does a great job of just kind of being right there. There are some really challenging aspects, but it's never hair-pulling. I had to redo a couple of spots multiple times from just barely missing a jump or two, but the controls are extremely fluid, so usually when I ended up dying, it wasn't the game messing up or the controls being poor. It was just my input mistakes that led to my death, and that's what makes a fun platformer to me. The game tells its story in a fun way that never is overbearing, and it is an interesting story. Maybe it isn't the most mind-blowing of an independent game I've played in recent memory. Still doesn't top my all-time favorite, which is pretty much Braid in the way that it told its story throughout. But Klaus is a very fun game. It is a blast to run through the levels and just barely make that jump. Seeing just how far you can end up jumping. Can you make that jump even though you're supposed to wait for that platform to make its way over? Overall, I had a blast playing through the game over the last couple of days, and it did last me several hours, which I was actually surprised. I'm sure, depending upon finding the secrets, as well as just your overall skill with platformers, the game will take more or less time, but I say easily took me 3.5 hours on my initial playthrough while also looking for all the various secrets. I have to also make note that the music is well done. There are some really cool tracks, and it's always kind of fitting. It mixes up that computer vibe, some retro 8-bit chiptune style stuff, as well as some other things like jazz that are mixed up throughout the various different levels. I really want to listen to the soundtrack outside the game and find some really cool tracks, because there's definitely some awesome moments from the audio department. Graphically, the art style is quite nice. I wouldn't say that it's anything overly unique. I know a lot of indie games nowadays are always trying to stand out and be completely unique and above all other games so that you instantly recognize it. But Klaus's graphics get the job done and has a cool style to it for sure, and there's some really cool backgrounds. Especially when you make it to like the glitch world that involves some of the computer programming. They did a really cool job with those particular levels. And in fact, the glitch world in general is my favorite set of levels. There's some really cool stuff that takes place in those particular levels. In fact, the whole game could have been those styles of levels, and I think it would have been a fantastic game. Overall, Klaus was a very fun platformer that I honestly had no expectation. Especially, I've been playing some pretty bad games lately, as we saw last week with Dogchild, so this completely washed the taste of that game out of my mouth. Klaus is available on the PlayStation 4 currently only, but it may, I think, go to other platforms. I'm not sure. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't. It is $19.99, currently available on PSN, and in the end, I'm going to be giving Klaus a 7 out of 10. It is a very fun platformer. It has a cool art style, good music, and just fun to play. I really enjoyed the game. But with that, that's going to wrap up this review of Klaus for PS4. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.